Okay, get ready for a story that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. From the city that never sleeps comes a tale of secrets and shocks. Enjoy the ride, everyone. Jonathan Sterling had it all, or so everyone thought. He owned the luxurious Grand Manhattan Hotel, a beacon of opulence in the heart of New York City. But whispers had started to reach his ears, unsettling whispers about how his staff treated guests. Rumors of some being favored while others were dismissed. Stories of employees turning a blind eye to those who didn't flash wealth, and managers only fawning over the high rollers. It gnawed at him. As the man at the top, he knew the truth was always filtered, sugar-coated, or just plain avoided. He needed to see for himself. Undercover boss time, he muttered to himself, already picturing the plan forming in his mind. Days later, shedding his tailored suits for worn jeans and a plain t-shirt, Jonathan walked through the employee entrance of his own hotel. To everyone there, he was just Joe, a new hire. No clue that beneath the ordinary clothes was the man who signed their paychecks. A jolt of adrenaline surged as he started to observe the hotel from a whole new perspective. Guests, bustling employees moving, it was a different world from his penthouse office. Fake ID and forged documents had sailed through HR, and he was assigned to housekeeping. Basic training was a blur of rushed instructions and curt directions. Even the way he was spoken to was different, sharper, colder. Grabbing a broom and slipping into a faded uniform, Jonathan Sterling was officially gone, and Joe the cleaner was in his hotel, ready to dig for the truth. The first days as Joe were a brutal awakening. Endless hallways stretching before him, ballrooms echoing with past events, and pristine lounges he'd only ever glimpsed. He swept floors, polished glass, and scrubbed stains from furniture he himself had chosen for its lavishness. The work was exhausting, physically draining in a way his desk job never hinted at. He'd seriously underestimated the sheer grind of his housekeeping team. Beyond the aching muscles, there was something else, a subtle but persistent disdain from some of the senior staff. His manager, a slick guy named Mark, barely acknowledged him except for curt orders and impatient sighs. Mark's eyes only lit up when a guest dripping in diamonds or flashing a platinum card walked by. Those were the people who got the smiles, the extra attention. Jonathan watched it all, soaking in every detail, his mind a sponge for the unspoken truths of his hotel. Day 3 found Joe scrubbing floors on the 10th floor when he bumped into a whirlwind of sunshine. Sarah Jenkins, a young maid, her smile as bright as the city lights outside. Her uniform was immaculate but frayed at the cuffs, and her shoes were scuffed, yet she carried herself with an undeniable grace. Kindness radiated from her. She saw him wrestling with a heavy cleaning cart and instantly offered help. "New here, huh?" she asked, her voice warm as they pushed the cart together down the long hallway. "Yeah, Joe," he replied, surprised by her easy friendliness. "And yeah, definitely got a lot to learn." Sarah laughed, a genuine light sound. "Don't sweat it. It's a maze at first, but you'll get the hang of it. Hard work, but honest work." Her words struck a chord. Here was someone facing the daily grind, yet radiating positivity. He watched her interact with others, helping a lost guest, directing a colleague, offering a glass of water to an elderly woman complaining about the air conditioning. Sarah's genuine care for everyone was a stark contrast to the coldness he'd observed elsewhere. Jonathan realized his investigation was just beginning, but this young maid had already shown him the kind of dedication he'd hoped to find, and frankly wasn't seeing in his executive team. At the end of the shift, he thanked her for the help. Sarah just smiled, unaware she was talking to the man who owned the building she worked in. Jonathan left the hotel that evening a different man. He was reflecting on Sarah's simple kindness in the midst of the hotel's glittering facade. In the days that followed, Jonathan made sure to be around Sarah, observing her, not just her work, but her whole demeanor. Unlike some employees who seemed to be on autopilot, Sarah treated each guest as an individual with respect and a smile that felt like a genuine welcome. During a quick break, they found themselves in the cramped staff room, a depressing space with stained plastic chairs and a coffee machine that looked like it belonged in a museum. Sarah was sipping water, a thoughtful look on her face. "So, Sarah," Jonathan started trying to sound casual, "how long you been here?" She smiled a little, like it was a question she got a lot. "Almost 2 years. It's not easy, but I actually like it here. Feels kind of like a second home, weirdly." "Must be tough balancing work and everything else," he pressed, wanting to know more about her life outside the hotel. Sarah hesitated, then seemed to decide he was safe to confide in. "Yeah, I'm a single mom. Got a little boy, Leo. He's 6. Everything I do is for him, you know. This job, it's to give him a good life, show him you work hard, you get somewhere. It's a struggle, but worth it." Jonathan was silent, absorbing her words. He saw the fierce love in her eyes, and in that moment, his undercover mission shifted. It wasn't just about the hotel's service anymore. It was about the lives, the sacrifices of the people who kept it running. "You're incredibly strong, Sarah," he said, surprising himself with the sincerity in his voice. She blushed a little. "We all got strength inside. Just gotta find a reason to use it." As they went back to work, Jonathan felt a growing respect for Sarah. His time undercover was taking on a new meaning. He was starting to learn more from this young woman than he ever expected. Her humility and determination were a mirror to values he'd somehow misplaced along the way. Jonathan started watching Sarah even more closely. He saw how she brightened every space she entered, always ready to lend a hand to coworkers or attend to guests with that same warm smile. Sarah was the first to help push a heavy cart or grab a forgotten item for a guest. It was all so genuine, so unlike the polished but often empty service he'd witnessed from some of the higher-paid staff. One afternoon, while pretending to organize supplies in a linen closet, he overheard Sarah talking to another maid, Maria, about her dreams. She was talking about wanting to go back to school to become a nurse. "I want to really help people, you know," Sarah said, her voice filled with passion. "Show Leo you can aim high, but right now every penny goes to rent, food, daycare, you name it." Her determination resonated deeply with Jonathan. He remembered his own early struggles starting his business, but he'd always had a safety net family money connections. Sarah was navigating life's rapids without a paddle. He felt an increasing admiration for her. The connection he felt with her grew stronger each day. He found himself drawn to her simplicity, her kindness, her unwavering strength. It was like in the midst of the hotel's artificial glamour, he'd found something profoundly real. At the end of Sarah's shift, he found her in the back laundry room carefully folding her uniform. He walked over, compelled to learn more about this woman who was stirring something within him. "Sarah, if you could change one thing in your life right now, what would it be?" he asked, trying to sound like a friend, just curious. She paused, considering the weight of the question. "More time with Leo. He's everything but work just swallows up so much. If I could, I'd be there for every single moment." Jonathan nodded, absorbing her words. It made him think about his own life, the distance he'd created between himself and his own family and friends chasing success. It was a disconnection he'd chosen, but now it felt like a heavy price. Over the next few days, Jonathan and Sarah's friendship deepened. Their conversations during breaks were becoming something he looked forward to. He was discovering values he'd long neglected. By the end of that week, Jonathan knew his undercover stint was about more than just fixing the hotel. He was drawn to Sarah's strength and kindness, feeling a connection he hadn't anticipated. It was like in the heart of his own hotel he'd found something he hadn't even realized he was searching for. As Jonathan settled into the routine and spent more time with the staff, the real issues of the hotel became glaringly obvious. While many like Sarah worked tirelessly, the environment was far from healthy. Mark, the manager, was a constant problem. Arrogant, dismissive, and frankly cruel, he seemed to take pleasure in belittling the lower-level employees. Mark's specialty was showering wealthy guests with obsequious attention, while completely ignoring anyone who didn't look like they could afford the penthouse suite. One particularly chaotic afternoon, Jonathan watched Mark publicly berate a young bellhop for a minor mistake just to impress a group of VIPs passing through the lobby. It made Jonathan's blood boil. He wanted to step in, reveal himself right then and there, but he knew he needed to play the long game. Mark's disdain was corrosive. He ignored requests for better equipment, dismissed complaints about working conditions, and the younger employees were visibly demoralized. For Jonathan, this was unacceptable. He'd always believed respect was the foundation of any good business. Seeing the reality he'd been blind to made him realize how far his hotel had drifted from those values. One day, pushing a linen cart down the hallway, he passed Mark, who sneered, "Come on, Joe, move it. Some people just can't seem to pick up the pace." Jonathan clenched his jaw but just nodded silently. He knew he had to endure these moments to fully understand the depth of the problem. But seeing Mark's behavior firsthand made it clear there was a serious rot at the core of his management. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Jonathan found Sarah in the staff room. She looked exhausted but still managed a small smile. As they talked, she confided that several colleagues were considering quitting. They couldn't take Mark's toxic environment anymore. "Mark just makes it clear we're all just here to serve. He always reminds us we're easily replaced," she said, her voice heavy with sadness. Her words echoed in Jonathan's mind. For many of these employees, change felt impossible. But Jonathan held the power to change everything. He just needed to choose the right moment. A decision began to solidify within him. When this undercover mission ended, things were going to change. Respect and dignity would be restored to every employee. The reality he was facing as Joe fueled a renewed determination. Each day in disguise underscored his responsibility as a leader. And alongside Sarah, he felt he'd found the very inspiration he needed to make that transformation happen. As time passed, Jonathan and Sarah's connection deepened. The friendship forged during stolen work breaks and heartfelt conversations was evolving into something more. Jonathan realized he was falling for her hard. The strength of that feeling started to make his disguise feel unbearable. He was no longer just the millionaire owner investigating his hotel. He was someone who desperately wanted to be honest with Sarah. One afternoon, as they finished cleaning a ballroom, Sarah shared a deeply personal story. She spoke about the constant struggle of raising Leo alone, the sleepless nights when he was sick, the never-ending juggling act of work and motherhood. "Sometimes I feel like I'm drowning," she confessed. "But then I see his smile, and I just keep going." Jonathan listened, his heart aching. Every word revealed a resilience he'd rarely encountered. This was the woman he was falling in love with. Someone who made him feel more real, more human. But his dilemma was growing. How could he tell her he was Jonathan Sterling, the owner of the hotel? And worse, how would she react when she found out he'd been living a lie from the start? One evening after work, they were outside the hotel, and Jonathan could no longer avoid the truth. He tried to test the waters indirectly. "Sarah, what would you do if you found out someone you admired had kept a big secret from you?" he asked, watching her reaction closely. She thought for a moment, her brow furrowed. "Depends on the secret, I guess. But trust is everything, you know. Any relationship, friendship, anything, it's built on honesty." Her words hit Jonathan like a punch. He knew with every day he delayed the truth, he was making a future with her more impossible. But the fear of losing her trust paralyzed him. He was trapped. As she said goodnight that evening, Jonathan watched her walk away. He knew he had to make a decision. His life of wealth and power hadn't prepared him for this moment. Sarah had opened his eyes to a different world. This whole experience was changing him at his core. Determined to find the right moment, he continued his charade, but with a newfound certainty. He had to find a way to reveal who he really was without destroying everything they had built. The next morning, Jonathan arrived at the hotel, feeling the weight of his secret pressing down on him. He knew a reveal was inevitable, but the timing felt impossible to pinpoint. Meanwhile, the pressure within the hotel was intensifying. Mark's behavior was escalating, becoming more erratic and abusive. Jonathan observed him closely. Now immersed in the daily grind, he saw the direct impact of Mark's toxic leadership. Mark seemed to derive pleasure from humiliating those beneath him, especially new hires like Joe and anyone he deemed subordinate like Sarah. Jonathan saw how it affected Sarah. She tried to maintain her usual optimism, but sometimes the strain was visible in her eyes. One afternoon, Mark found a petty excuse to reprimand Sarah. She was helping a family find their lost luggage when Mark stormed over, arms crossed, adopting his usual power trip stance. "Sarah, what are you doing here? Didn't I make it clear housekeeping stays out of guest services? Just focus on your cleaning, that's all you're qualified for." His voice was sharp-laced with condescension. Sarah lowered her head, shame coloring her cheeks. The public humiliation stung, but she tried to maintain her composure, masking the hurt. Jonathan watched from across the lobby, anger rising like a tide. He wanted to intervene, but as Joe, he couldn't challenge Mark without blowing his cover. Still, the situation became unbearable when he saw Sarah turn away, tears welling in her eyes. He waited until the lobby cleared, then followed her. He found her in the staff room, her face buried in her hands. Jonathan sat beside her, silently offering comfort. After a moment, Sarah looked up, a fragile smile on her face. "Sorry, Joe. Just being weak." "Weak?" "Sarah, that's not weakness. You're the strongest person here, enduring this every day. I don't get why Mark treats you like this," Jonathan said, his voice tight with suppressed anger. She sighed deeply, trying to regain her composure. "Mark's always been like this. He likes to remind us we're disposable. Just how he is, everyone says." Hearing her words, a wave of sadness washed over Jonathan. She'd almost accepted this mistreatment as normal, unacceptable. It solidified his resolve to act. Change wasn't just needed, it was urgent. Not just for Sarah, but for everyone suffering under Mark's reign. That night, Jonathan wrestled with how to confront Mark without revealing his identity. He was impatient, but knew he had to be strategic. Finally, he decided he would confront Mark directly in the next shift, consequences be damned. The next day, Jonathan found Mark in the break room holding court, complaining loudly about the housekeeping staff's supposed incompetence. Perfect timing. "Mark, can I talk to you for a sec?" Jonathan said, his voice steady. Mark turned his head, disdain and surprise flickering across his face. "What is it, Joe? I'm busy." "It's about how you treat the staff. You're being unfair." Mark let out a harsh laugh, attracting the attention of the other employees in the room. "Unfair? Listen, newbie, you're new, so I'll let this slide. I'm the manager here. I know my job. You think you can teach me something? Jonathan remained calm but didn't back down. Just saying you could be more respectful. Everyone here is doing their best. Oh, now we got a knight in shining armor defender of the downtrodden, Mark sneered, his eyes narrowed. Look, Joe, I'm in charge here. If you don't like how I run things, maybe this place isn't for you. Mark's words hung in the air. Jonathan had to restrain himself from reacting in a way that would expose his true identity. Mark clearly saw his employees as expendable. Disgusting. He knew this confrontation wouldn't magically change Mark's attitude, but it was a start. Definitive action was coming. It was just a matter of time. Later that day, Jonathan found Sarah again. She looked defeated, the weight of Mark's earlier humiliation still heavy on her. Jonathan felt a pang of sympathy. He sat beside her, wanting to find the right words. "Sarah, you deserve so much better than this," he said, his voice full of sincerity. "No one should be treated like that." She gave a weak smile, her eyes reflecting exhaustion. "Sometimes I think about leaving. Look for something else. But nothing else pays enough to cover rent, daycare, everything. I feel trapped." Jonathan wanted to tell her everything was about to change, that he would transform the hotel, but he couldn't reveal his hand yet. Instead, he offered simple support. "Whatever you need, Sarah, I'm here. You're not alone." Sarah looked at him and for the first time saw a true friend, someone who genuinely cared. She thanked him with a warm look, and for a moment the fatigue seemed to lift. As she walked away, Jonathan felt a surge of urgency. He had to fix this. His plan was clear. Once he revealed himself, Mark would be held accountable. And most importantly, he would make sure Sarah and everyone else felt valued in his hotel. Until then, he would stay by her side, their bond strengthening, preparing for the change that was about to explode. Weeks crawled by. The hotel atmosphere grew heavier. Mark's reign intensified. Jonathan knew his disguise was nearing its end. He was waiting for the perfect moment to reveal himself and unleash the changes. His bond with Sarah had deepened into something undeniable. Their moments together were a refuge from the hotel's oppressive environment, but the lie was eating him alive. He knew the truth could shatter everything. The fear of losing her trust was a constant ache. One evening, after a draining workday, Jonathan and Sarah found themselves in the staff room drinking coffee. Exhaustion etched on their faces, but a comfortable silence settled between them. "You know, Joe," Sarah began, her voice soft. "Working here, it's a roller coaster. Some days feel impossible. But then I think about the good people and the little moments. That's what keeps me going." She looked at him, a grateful smile on her face. Jonathan felt a lump in his throat. The time had come. He could no longer live this lie. He had to reveal his true identity and Mark's reign and take his rightful place. He could rewrite their reality. He could improve their lives. The next morning, Jonathan put his plan into motion. He scheduled an all-staff meeting to thank the employees for their hard work and dedication. Word spread like wildfire. The hotel owner was coming. Curiosity and anticipation buzzed through the hotel, but for Jonathan it was tense. He knew the revelation would be a shock, especially to Sarah. He braced himself for her reaction, for the fallout. When the meeting time arrived, Jonathan walked into the ballroom where everyone was waiting. He was no longer Joe. He was Jonathan Sterling. Dressed in his sharp suit, his posture firm. The room went silent. Eyes widened. Jaws dropped. Sarah stared at him, her face a mask of disbelief. "Good morning, everyone," Jonathan began, his voice resonating through the hushed room. "Thank you for being here. To most of you, I'm just a name behind this hotel. But for the past few weeks, I've been working among you as Joe." A collective gasp rippled through the room. "I've seen firsthand the incredible work you do, the dedication you pour into this hotel every single day." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I've also seen the injustices, the unacceptable treatment some of you endure. I'm here to make things right, and that starts with an apology. To each of you who has ever felt undervalued here." Mark, the manager, shifted uncomfortably, his face paling. He tried to maintain a facade of composure, but fear flickered in his eyes. Jonathan turned his gaze directly to Mark. "Mark," he said, his tone hardening, "in the past few weeks, I've observed your management style. I've witnessed the disrespect, the disdain you show your staff. Abuse, humiliation, that's not leadership, and it will not be tolerated in this hotel." Mark stammered, trying to defend himself. "Mr. Sterling, I've always done my job efficiently. Discipline is necessary to maintain order." Jonathan cut him off sharply. "Discipline is not about humiliation, Mark. Efficiency is not about belittling your team. These employees are the heart of this hotel. They are the ones who make it run, who care for our guests. And you, instead of leading, have chosen to abuse your power. Mark tried again, his voice trembling. Mr. Sterling, I was just following company policy, ensuring efficiency. No, Mark, Jonathan's voice was final. Efficiency without respect is not my policy. You had your chance to lead, but you used it to exploit others. You're fired, effective immediately. And I hope this serves as a lesson in respect and true leadership. A wave of murmurs swept through the room, relief and shock mixing on the employees' faces. Humiliated, Mark shot Jonathan a look of pure hatred before storming out of the ballroom. Jonathan turned back to the staff, his expression serious, but now softened with understanding. From this day forward, I promise this hotel will be a place where you work with dignity and respect. Every one of you is valued. His eyes met Sarah's. She was still watching him, her expression a complex blend of confusion and sadness. She looked shaken, processing the revelation. He knew he needed to explain. Sarah, he said softly, I know this disguise feels like a betrayal, but working with you, getting to know your story, it changed me, deeply. I should have been honest from the start, and I understand if you're hurt. Sarah shook her head, frustration in her voice. Was this all just some game? Were you just studying us, studying me? Jonathan felt the sting of her words. It wasn't a game, Sarah. Nothing I feel for you is fake. I needed to understand the reality here. You showed me what integrity, strength truly mean. She looked at him, her eyes still clouded with hurt. I need time, Joe. I need to process this. He nodded, understanding. He knew her trust was shattered. Winning it back would be a long road. Despite the pain, he respected her need for space. In the days that followed, Jonathan moved swiftly to implement real change. With Mark gone, he promoted fair leaders focused on valuing the team. The news spread like wildfire. Relief washed over the hotel. Employees started working with renewed energy and confidence. But despite the improvements, Jonathan felt Sarah's absence keenly. One evening, leaving the hotel, he saw her waiting. She hesitated, then met his gaze. Sarah, can we talk? He asked sincerely. She nodded, and they walked to the hotel garden. Jonathan laid it all out. The reasons for his disguise, his true intentions, his real feelings for her. I wanted to understand your world, the weight of your work. Meeting you changed everything. You inspired me to fix this place. You are my inspiration, and everything I feel for you is real. He confessed, his heart laid bare. She listened silently, weighing his words. Finally, she spoke softly. Jonathan, it's not easy to forget what happened, but I see you're trying, I see you want to change, and I want to believe you. I just need time to trust again. He nodded, relief flooding him. He knew rebuilding trust would take time, but he was ready for every step, by her side. In the following days, Jonathan focused on transforming the hotel, creating a culture of respect and support, leaving Mark's shadow behind. Weeks turned into months. Jonathan saw the positive impact. Employees were energized. Communication flowed freely. The hotel felt different, lighter. But Sarah's emotional distance still ached. One night in his office, reviewing proposals, he heard a soft knock. Sarah stood there, hesitant, yet determined. Sarah, he said, his heart leaping, please come in. She entered, closed the door. Tense silence hung between them. Jonathan waited patiently. She took a breath and began, her voice steady. I wanted to say, I see what you've done. The changes, the hotel, it's different. I see you care about everyone here. It makes me believe you were genuine. Jonathan nodded. Sarah, I did all this because of you. You showed me the world through different eyes. The importance of respect, empathy, love. I know I messed up hiding who I was, but my feelings for you are real. She looked away, touched. It's hard to trust Jonathan. Finding out the truth, it felt like everything shattered. But I want to believe people can change. Jonathan felt a surge of hope. I know I can't undo the past, but I'm willing to prove you can trust me, every day, if you give me a chance. I promise no more secrets. Silence fell again. The air felt lighter. A real possibility opened between them. Finally, Sarah looked up, a shy smile touching her lips. I still need time. But maybe we can start slow, try to rebuild little by little. Jonathan nodded respectfully. Take all the time you need. I'll be here. No pressure. Just know I'll be by your side whenever you want. Sarah smiled. A spark of trust rekindled. They talked longer, discussing hotel improvements projects they could collaborate on. It would be a long journey, but they were rebuilding something real. As Sarah left, Jonathan felt lighter than he had in weeks. He was ready to fight for their relationship, to prove he was worthy of her trust. Days turned into weeks. Jonathan and Sarah began cautiously reconnecting, like strangers becoming friends again. She kept a polite distance but allowed him to help with hotel initiatives. Together, they organized staff gatherings to gather feedback. Working alongside Sarah, Jonathan showed his commitment was real. One afternoon after a staff meeting, they were in the break room discussing ideas. Sarah laughed at something he said. Jonathan realized how much he'd missed her genuine smile, but caution still lingered in her eyes. "Sarah, I never played with your feelings," Jonathan said softly. "You're the reason I'm doing all this. Everything is inspired by you." She looked at him, her smile fading slightly, but her gaze softened. "Jonathan, I understand your intentions, and I see you working hard to change things. But this taught me to be careful. Broken trust takes time." He nodded, respecting her boundaries. It was a slow process. Each day with her was a gift. He learned patience was key, not to rush her forgiveness. Weeks passed. The hotel transformed. Employees were motivated, the atmosphere positive. Guests noticed the change. Jonathan took on operational tasks, showing he valued every job. One day in the lobby, Jonathan saw Sarah watching him, surprised, maybe even moved to see him working alongside his staff. A small flicker of hope ignited within him. At the end of her shift, Jonathan caught up with her. "Like the changes?" he asked with a genuine smile. She stopped, looked thoughtful. "Yes. Hotel feels different. Everyone senses it. I see you're committed." Seizing the moment, Jonathan invited her for coffee outside the hotel, a neutral space. Surprised, Sarah hesitated, then agreed. At a nearby cafe, the conversation flowed easier. Jonathan opened up about his life, the loneliness of power, the distance from family chasing success. Sarah listened intently, seeing beyond the millionaire facade. "Jonathan, have you ever asked yourself what you really want besides success?" she asked gently. He paused, thinking. "Truth is no. I thought hotels respect success would be enough, but now I see it means nothing alone. Meeting you made me realize what truly matters." Sarah looked at him with compassion. Pain still lingered, but she saw a man genuinely trying to be better, not just for her, but for himself. On the walk back, the silence was comfortable. Jonathan felt a fresh start was possible. Over time, Jonathan and Sarah's connection deepened. Outside the hotel, their relationship blossomed. Each encounter brought them closer. Cautious, but genuine. Jonathan was determined to show her with actions how much he'd changed. Hotel changes were in full swing. Jonathan invested in staff training, feedback systems, open communication, creating a culture of appreciation and respect. Sarah was deeply involved, a leader in housekeeping, guiding new employees. Her charisma dedication made her a role model. Jonathan admired her influence. One Sunday, after a training event, Jonathan and Sarah walked in the park. Jonathan broached a new topic. "Sarah, have you considered a formal leadership role? You inspire people. You know operations better than anyone." Sarah looked surprised, hesitant. "Never thought about it. Being in charge feels distant. I'm a behind-the-scenes person." Jonathan smiled encouragingly. "Those are exactly the leaders we need. Someone who understands every job, values every task." They walked in silence, Sarah considering. The idea was both exciting and daunting, but Harrison's trust inspired her. Days later, Sarah accepted. Jonathan was moved. They began structuring her new role. This transition strengthened their bond. Jonathan felt pride seeing her shine. Months passed. Sarah thrived in her new position, implementing improvements, transforming the hotel environment. The team was engaged. Guests noticed the difference. The hotel reflected a welcoming, caring atmosphere. Beyond superficial luxury, Jonathan and Sarah's partnership matured. Their feelings deepened. Respecting the natural pace, time was essential to rebuild trust. One evening after a staff event, Jonathan invited Sarah to dinner. Relaxed atmosphere, at ease. Talking about the future, laughing about Joe days. In a quiet moment, Jonathan watched her, grateful. "Sarah, you know all this that changes the hotel. It wouldn't have happened without you. You showed me what matters." She smiled, touched. "Jonathan, you showed me people can change. Second chances are real." They both felt ready to leave the past behind, embrace a future, built on trust, respect, love. Jonathan and Sarah grew closer, their feelings undeniable. Working side by side created intimacy, trust. Jonathan wanted to be present not just with Sarah, but in Leo's life too. He needed Leo's trust. Opportunity came unexpectedly. One Saturday, Jonathan and Sarah leaving together. Sarah checked her watch, worried. "Pick up Leo, running late." Jonathan hesitated, then saw his chance. "Could I come, if you don't mind?" "Really? I'd like you to meet him. Sarah smiled. They drove to Leo's friend's house. Jonathan felt nervous. Meeting Leo was a big step. He wanted it to go well. Leo ran to Sarah, big smile, jumping into her arms. 6 years old, bright eyes, infectious laugh, like his mom. Seeing Jonathan, he looked curious. Sarah smiled, introduced them. Leo, this is Jonathan. He's my friend. Works with me at the hotel. Jonathan knelt to Leo's level, held out his hand. Leo shook it confidently, surprisingly bold. Hey, Leo, your mom talks about you a lot. Heard you're a superhero fan. Who's your favorite? Jonathan asked, hoping to connect. Leo's face lit up. Spider-Man. He climbs walls. He's brave. Great choice. Jonathan laughed, relieved. Spider-Man is awesome. Good taste. Sarah watched, touched. Jonathan's warmth with Leo. They spent the afternoon together. Jonathan sharing childhood stories, Leo laughing, asking endless questions. By day's end, Jonathan felt he'd made a friend. Leo was like Sarah. Genuine, cheerful, full of life. Walking to the car, Jonathan wanted to be part of their lives. Their small family. Weeks passed. The three of them shared more moments. Sarah allowed Jonathan closer to Leo. Leo treated Jonathan as a friend. One evening after dinner, Leo approached Jonathan, mischievous smile. Are you going to be my mom's superhero? He asked innocently. Sarah laughed, embarrassed. Jonathan smiled warmly. I'll try my best, Leo. Maybe someday I'll be Spider-Man brave. Leo pleased. Sarah looked at Jonathan, affection, gratitude in her eyes. Letting him into their lives was a big step. But Jonathan felt genuine. One evening after putting Leo to bed, Jonathan and Sarah sat in her backyard stargazing. Peaceful moment. Quiet companionship. Funny, you know. Never imagined someone like you, someone like us, would end up here like this together, Sarah said softly. Jonathan looked at her, heart racing. Didn't expect my life to change this much either. Meeting you and Leo, it gave me something I didn't even know I needed. He reached for her hand. Sarah intertwined her fingers with his, feeling secure. Under the starlight, Jonathan knew it was time. He moved closer, kissed her. A kiss that conveyed everything. Affection, respect, promise. After the kiss, they hugged. Jonathan felt he'd found what he was searching for. Not success, not money. This moment. Connection with Sarah, building a real life together. Their relationship deepened naturally. Jonathan, a constant presence in Leo's life. Weekends at the park, superhero movies. Interactive museums. Leo dressed as Spider-Man taking photos. Jonathan had never felt so happy. Seeing Leo's joy. Simple moments were everything. One night, Jonathan planned a surprise for Sarah. Knowing she loved to cook, he made dinner. She arrived to candles, flowers, table set. Jonathan, anxious, smiled, dinner ready. Know you're used to Gala's fancy dinners. But tonight I wanted something special. Just us, he said, serving appetizers. Sarah looked enchanted. Candlelight dinner, laughing, recalling Joe days. After dinner, Jonathan led her to the terrace. Small surprise. Telescope stargazing. Wanted to show you something special, he said, adjusting the telescope, pointing to a bright star. That star right there reminded me of you, constant bright, guides me. Sarah smiled, touched his face gently. You're already my son's hero. And mine too, Jonathan. They hugged. Love growing stronger, truer. Jonathan knew Leo and Sarah were his family. He'd do anything to protect, love them. Months passed. Hotel under Sarah's leadership flourished. Welcoming, prosperous. Jonathan felt proud. Sarah's determination, empathy. Work environment reflected her energy. Respect, appreciation. Continuous improvement. Everyone felt like family. Sarah led with grace, skill. Jonathan knew he couldn't have done it without her. Every day confirmed their love was deep, true. Sharing joys, challenges, dreams. Jonathan remained a constant for Leo. Role model support. Weekends, picnics, museums, movie nights. To Leo, Jonathan was more than a friend. Someone he could trust. Family. Jonathan knew it was time for the next step. He wanted Sarah to know she and Leo were his life, his priority, his family. He planned a proposal worthy of her. One special night, Jonathan took Sarah to a seaside restaurant. Starlight night, soft waves crashing, talking, laughing, reminiscing. Sarah suspected nothing, Jonathan growing more anxious. After dinner, he invited her for a beach walk. Small area decorated with lights, rose petals, candles. Magical touch. Sarah looked around enchanted. Before she could speak, Jonathan knelt holding a small box, sparkling ring. Sarah, he began, heart racing. From the moment I met you, my life changed. You taught me humility, empathy, true love. Every day by your side makes me want to be better. You and Leo mean everything. Can't imagine a future without you. Sarah Jenkins, will you marry me? Build this family with me. Tears in her eyes, brightest smile she'd ever shown him. Sarah nodded. Yes, Jonathan, yes, I will. I'll share my life with you today, always. They embraced, overwhelmed, world fading away. Jonathan slipped the ring on her finger, kissed her under the starlit sky. Beginning of a beautiful journey. Wedding day arrived. Hotel felt like an extension of Sarah and Jonathan's happiness. Ceremony in hotel gardens. Flowers, ivy, white roses. Hotel staff family. Moved happy, celebrating. Leo in a small blue suit, beaming. Ring bearer. Having Jonathan as his dad made him happier than anything. Adored him. More than a wedding. Finally having the family he wished for. Sarah appeared at the aisle. Jonathan breathless. Stunning in a simple, elegant dress. Veil lilies. Eyes sparkling, smile lighting up everything. Luckiest man alive. Sarah walked towards him, gaze fixed on the man she loved. Each step, love journey shared. Reached the altar. Jonathan held her hands tight, emotion overwhelming. Ceremony, beautiful, emotional. Vows, heartfelt, sincere. Jonathan promised to be devoted, husband, loving father to Leo. Make them happy every day. Sarah, tears in her eyes, promised to stand by his side through everything. Always love, respect. I do. Applause erupted. Leo ran to them, hugging them joyously. Jonathan knelt, pulled him close. Three of them embraced, sealing their union. More than a wedding, a new family fulfilled. Celebration, joyful, unforgettable. Leo danced with Sarah, making everyone laugh. Jonathan danced with Sarah close, whispering love, gratitude. Every smile, laugh, toast celebrated their life. Later, watching guests, Jonathan and Sarah stepped away to a quiet part of the garden. He pulled her close arms around her, looked at her indescribable love. You know this is just the beginning, right? He said, smiling. Sarah nodded, eyes shining. Yes, and I couldn't be happier. You showed me what true love is, Jonathan. They kissed under the starlit sky. Peace, happiness found their place in the world. For Jonathan, nothing more precious than this family. Holding Sarah, he knew he was where he was meant to be, with the people he loved, ready for a life filled with love, trust, hope. Beside them.